My name is not important. What matters is that I am one of millions of Americans living the same reality. I'm a single parent. I work. I go to school full-time because I believe in the promise that education can open doors. I try to budget carefully. I stretch every dollar. I don't gamble. I don't use drugs. And I try not to waste money on unnecessary things. And yet every month, I face the same question. How is it possible to work this hard and still struggle this much? The facts explain what my lived experience feels like. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, worker productivity has increased more than 60% since 1979, while hourly compensation has risen only 17% during the same period. That means people like me are producing more value than ever before, but our paychecks do not reflect it. The federal minimum wage has remained at $7.25 since 2009. The Congressional Budget Office reports that its real value has fallen more than 30% in inflation. These numbers describe what I feel every time I look at my bank account. The cost of living rises. The average wages do not. Housing is the largest expense. The United States Census Bureau reports that more than half of renter households spend over 30% of their income on housing, placing them in the category of cost-burdened. The Department of Housing and Urban Development notes that the median home price is now more than 6 times the median household income, the highest ratio recorded in modern federal housing data. Homeownership is not a realistic goal for me, and millions of Americans like me. Rent alone consumes so much that savings feels impossible. I'm not failing to save because I'm irresponsible. I'm failing to save because the math does not work. Healthcare is another barrier. Research published in the American Journal of Public Health found that medical expenses contribute to a substantial share of personal bankruptcy in the United States. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services report that national health expenditures continues to rise faster than wages do. Even with insurance, deductibles, co-pays make it difficult to seek care when it is available. Some small towns don't even offer medical care that is covered by state insurance. I hope small problems do not become big ones. Not because I want to, but because the system requires it. Education is supposed to be the path to a better life. That's why I'm in school full-time. But the National Center for Education Statistics reports that inflation-adjusted cost of attending a 4-year public institute has more than doubled since 1980. The Federal Reserve states that student loan debt now exceeds $1.7 trillion nationwide. I'm trying to climb, but the ladder is expensive. And every semester I take on more debt, not because I'm careless, but because the cost of tuition leaves me no choice. Childcare is another major cost. The United States Department of Labor reports that childcare expenses exceeds $10,000 per year in many states, often surpassing the cost of in-state college tuition. As a single mother, I cannot work or attend school without childcare, yet childcare costs more than my rent. I'm not choosing between luxuries, I'm choosing between necessities. Wealth inequality shapes all of this. The Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances shows that the top 1% of households holds approximately 32% of the national wealth, while the bottom half of households holds less than 3%. This concentration of wealth affects political influences and economic opportunities. A study from Princeton University found that the average citizens have statistically insignificant influence on federal policy outcomes, while economic elites and organized businesses' interests exert substantial influence. These findings match what many working families feel, that the system is not designed for us in mind. With this broader context, it's important to examine the important effects of federal policies enacted during the Trump administration. Government and academic sources identify both positive and negative impacts on the working class. The Tax Cut and Job Acts of 2017 reduced income tax rates for most households, and increased the standard deduction, which temporarily increased take-home pay for many working-class families. I felt that increase. It helped. But the Congressional Budget Office reports that the majority of long-term benefits from the law acquire to higher income households and corporations, while many provisions affecting individuals expired in 2025. Just look at your tax return this year compared to last year. For families like mine, the short-term relief was real, but the long-term structure favors those with more wealth. Trade policies, including tariffs on Chinese imports, were intended to protect American manufacturing. The United States International Trade Commission found that certain industries, such as steel and aluminum, experienced short-term employment gains. However, academic studies published throughout the National Bureau of Economic Research found that tariffs also increased consumer prices and reduced employment in industries that rely on import materials. As a consumer, I felt the price increases long before I understood the policy behind them. Groceries cost more, clothing cost more, household goods cost more, and my paycheck did not increase. Regulatory changes during this period reduced compliance costs for some businesses. The Office of Management and Budget reported that deregulation lowered costs in sectors such as energy and transportation. At the same time, academic research indicates that rollbacks of labor and safety regulations reduced worker protections, including overtime eligibility and union organizing rights. For workers like me and many Americans, this reduced protection means increased vulnerability, which increases the risk of hospitalization and therefore the medical care. It means fewer safeguards when something goes wrong. Healthcare policy changes also had mixed effects. The repeal of the Affordable Care Act's individual mandate contributed to higher premiums in some markets, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Proposed reductions to Medicaid funding would have disproportionately affected low-income households, though many proposals were not enacted. For families already struggling with medical costs, these changes added uncertainty. These facts describe the world I live in, and many Americans as well. They explain why we work hard, study hard, and still struggle to pay bills, buy food, and access healthcare. They show that the challenges facing the working class are not the result of personal failures. They are the result of structural conditions documented by government agencies and academic research. I am not struggling because of poor choices. We're struggling because the system around us makes upward mobility dang near impossible. I may be only one person, but my story is not unique. This is the story of millions of Americans who are doing everything right and still can't get ahead. The facts speak for themselves.